Hey everybody, welcome to Fak Attack, starring IFBB Pro and amazing prep coach Fakhri Mubarak. Some recent numbers: 115 pro cards, 22 pro wins, over 3,000. That's 3,000 NPC class wins. You just added a few at the Atlantic States recently.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
saw.
yeah, sir.
So
Long time, man. Long time doing this, man.
please welcome Fakhri Mubarak. What's up, dude? Yeah.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, everybody. And as always, Ron, I appreciate you guys. You and Muscular Development always, man. Thank you.
Yeah, it was good running into you at the New York Pro. I
Yeah,
wish I had a little more time to talk.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
always like so hectic at those shows when we're doing the coverage, but it is what it is.
Well, you and
It's,
Jose always do a good job, man. So I can tell you that much.
I try, yeah. Jose's my partner in crime at these shows now. I very much
Yeah,
appreciate having him there. So the idea this time was to talk about growth hormone because it's a
yeah,
huge subject in bodybuilding and PED use, and especially now as we're getting into the summer months, people want to get leaner. That's a tool a lot of people employ as
yeah.
part of their cutting process. So I have some FAQ type questions, and I know you actually solicited questions on Instagram, and you got a bunch of good questions too. So I'll start with mine. Um, First of all, how important is growth hormone, and at what levels does it become a must for a bodybuilder? Or when I say bodybuilder, I mean all the divisions. I'm just saying bodybuilder.
Yeah. So I've known bodybuilders that have turned pro without GH. I've known many of them that turn pro without GH. How important is GH? Well, if you have $1,000, you're not going to spend $400 on a kit and $600 on the rest of the gear, right? So GH is an additive to the actual gear itself. For some people, it works better than others. I could tell you for myself, it works amazing. I mean, I was literally on growth for 18 straight years.
Oh,
I mean, yeah, straight. I did my PCTs and my cleanouts 2 to 3 times a year, every single year, no matter what, from the gear. But GH I was on for 18 straight years. It's important because I myself have seen a difference, and I've seen a difference with clients. But people have turned pro without it.
okay. So I've known people that won shows, and you tell me this: is every pro using growth hormone? Every single one?
They try. I mean, of course, you wanna have everything in your arsenal. Yeah, it's true, right? You want to have everything in your arsenal. So growth is definitely part of the arsenal. But I guess people take the name growth hormone and they think it's the end all. It's not the end all, but yeah, if you want to be competitive, especially nowadays, that most people have access to real growth, right? Yeah, you want to have it in your arsenal. So most pros have it in there. Most of my clients have it in there, amateur, even lifestyle clients, all the way up to pros.
But what's the difference between just being on regular steroids and then adding in growth hormone? What difference does a person typically see?
I mean, you know, again, gear. So you ever heard somebody say, "Well, I think my PEDs are working."
Yeah.
If you thinking your PEDs are working, they're not working, right? So growth is something that you add in with your PEDs, and you'll see additional changes. You'll see the finer changes, more thinner skin, more lean. Being leaner, the ability to eat more food. But to put into perspective, if you take growth without gear, you're not going to see any results.
Mm.
So GH is an amazing, yeah, to me. Like I said, I have amazing results from it. It's an amazing additive to growth. To gear. So once you add the GH, you'll see the big difference. Along with the gear.
Yeah. I mean, I was using it. I've only been off for 6 weeks. I'm getting some more soon. But the one thing I notice is I'm not as lean.
Yeah,
It's a very noticeable difference. You're leaner without any other changes.
yeah,
No cardio difference, diet exactly the same, nothing. But and I was only doing 2.5 units a day, which
yeah.
for me seemed to work fine for fat burning purposes. I never used more than 4 units a day, even when I was getting it for free for a while.
Yeah.
And I never saw any additional muscle growth. And I've talked to a lot of experts, and they say you're not going to see any growth until you up the dose to. I've heard different. Some say 6 to 8 range, 8 to 10 I use. What do you generally see for most people is a difference for when the growth goes from just fat burning to now you're actually putting on some extra muscle tissue too?
So before I answer this question, we get a lot of critics, voicing their opinions on our show. We get a lot of critics voicing their opinion, on what others say, on what I say. Just to let everybody know, I was 5'5", 286 pounds at my peak. I was one of the strongest and biggest pound-for-pound bodybuilders in the world at 5'5" or at any height. So when I say things, guys, I'm not a coach that has no experience, being a great bodybuilder. I'm not a coach that doesn't have an experience, competing or just walking around like a fucking beast, right? So when I say things, it's because I know I've been doing this for 33 years. I've been in the sport for 33 years. My cousins are both doctors, so I've been around bodybuilding since I was 11 years old. When I used to run, well, I started running GH again a couple of weeks ago. So it comes out to 10. So 1.5 units per night, along with my TRT, which I do 250 every 10 days now. But you're right. So in the last week and a half, I have seen a difference. So that tells you how fast I respond to GH. So before I use the GH, my IGF-1 levels, which is your IGF-1 levels are tested when you run blood work, they were around 450, right? 450, 455. When I upped the GH to 6 IUs a day, so 3 in the morning, 3 at night, it was about 475. I've gotten as high as 16 IUs a day, 8 in the morning, 8 at night. Real Serranos. No, I've never taken anything fake. I've always taken real gear. So real Serranos, Serostins at 16 IUs, it was still around like 470. So there wasn't much of a difference between 4 IUs, 2 and 2, to 16 IUs, 8 and 8. The numbers you hear nowadays are well, not just nowadays, but nowadays even more are extremely ridiculous to me. First of all, if it's real GH, I don't know how anybody's even affording this, because even a good hookup on growth is about 4 IUs, $4 an IU, and that's a great price. So when you hear people taking 20, 25 IUs, it's probably that cheap GH shit or just fake gear, man. And if they run their blood work doesn't lie. You're gonna see in your blood work if your IGF-1 levels are not that much more and your GH serum levels are not that much more, you're not benefiting that much more from taking a higher amount. So for me, 4 to 6 IUs, that was what helped me grow and keep me lean as well. Because again, I was 286, but I was never fat. Nobody ever saw me fat. I was always in good shape. No, I have to say this, Ron, because you have a lot of critics out there, man, and you have a lot of people talking crap. And also, if anybody would ever like to discuss anything with me and Ron, you are more than welcome to come on our show. Please, at any time. So
we've talked about having like a guest, like a third person. We haven't done it yet, so yeah, maybe you'll hear from somebody that wants to argue with us or whatever. That'd be cool.
I would love to. Yeah, come on board.
So yeah,
bring a friend. You can bring a friend too.
you brought up a good point just now about generic kits versus the actual pharma grade stuff, the Serasims, the Serranos, which you can get. You're talking about that $4 an IU. That's a really good price for generic for pharma. You can get the kits, the generic stuff, for about half that, sometimes less.
Yeah.
In your experience, from talking to people, whatever, do the generic kits, are they as effective IU per IU? Are they a lot of fakes? I mean, is everyone better off just trying to get pharma if they can afford it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, pharma, everything is going to be real, right? I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's coming from a real pharmaceutical company. It's coming from the hospitals. It's coming from the pharmacies. So yeah, of course, 100%. Real, RX GH is going to work better. Now, as far as the generic GHs, I would say over 90% of them are fake. I know a couple of sources that sell generic and they get the powders from China, as most underground and generic stuff comes from, and very few of them have tested, positive. And it's easy nowadays, right? You go on roytest.com and you could buy a growth hormone test or just run your blood work. Again, if you're taking growth, if you're taking 2 IUs of growth, your IGF-1 levels are going to be above normal. So just if you want to listen, if you guys don't want to spend $500, $600, $700 a kit, you want to spend a couple $100, run your blood work at least. 1, to be healthy, to make sure you're healthy, and then 2, to test your hormones.
I mean, it's no sense. You're not really saving money if it's fake anyway. You're just wasting money. You'd be better off saving up or whatever. But that's 90%. That's your estimate of how much of the growth the generic stuff is actually junk? Or I mean, it's not growth. What is it? It's just inert powder. What do you think it is?
So there's a chemical that's called albumin. And what it does is it creates the tingling carpal tunnel feeling in your fingers. And knowing, like, again, I've been around for a long time. I know a lot of people. I know manufacturers in China. I know guys that produce this in China. So, the first thing people say, well, no, my hands got numbed, or I got carpal tunnel vision, or my fingers are tingly. Well, there's a chemical, there's an actual chemical that they put in there to make you guys feel like think that the GH is real. So that's one thing. But yeah, like I said, Ron, just test it, man. Just test your blood work and test the gear.
Clever. They're so clever, aren't they?
Yeah,
Jeez. Well, it's big money. Big money. I always say
huge money.
I always say there's no honor among thieves. So, no honor among thieves. So we're talking. Let's talk doses again. So I think for life extension purposes, a lot of people are getting it prescribed to them from these these TRT clinics and life extension places, and the standard dose is like 1 to 2 IUs a day, which you'll get. That's the hair, skin, nails. That's the little bit of a lipolytic effect. You'll burn some fat, but where do you think for most people the dose where they're going to see the best results? And does it matter if you're, 140-pound women's physique competitor versus a 260-pound male bodybuilder? Do they need more or less?
Yeah, I mean, of course, with your weight and depending on where your goals are. Let me just open the door for the dog. I'm sorry.
Yeah. My pup's in the other room.
So for lifestyle dosages and purposes, they recommend anywhere between 0.5 to 1 IU. Some doctors even go even lower, 0.3. And that does help. That does help. Increase the GH levels if your GH levels are really low. For athletic purposes, I've always said 2 IUs minimum. For bodybuilding purposes, again, with my blood work and blood work with clients, I would say 4 to 6 IUs. Anything more than that, man, it's just like I said. My body worked extremely well. I didn't have the best genetics because people would say, well, you had great genetics. Well, I had high calves, I had high thighs, I had big bones. So it wasn't that I had good genetics, but I was fucking big. And everything hung on me because of the amount of size that I had at 5'5". Even now, we took a picture this weekend with Samson Duda. And people were like, "Holy shit, Fak, are you back?" I said, "No, I out angled him."
Dude, you're learning from me. You just posted
of course, man. That's
right before we started. I probably should do this a better way, but that was your natural versus enhanced, and you were not most guys on gear in the gyms don't look as good as you did natural. So,
I started training at 167 pounds. So it took me 10 years to put on 30 pounds of muscle. But we've talked about progressive overload and everything else in the past. So going back to GH, I would say 4 to 6 IUs. It would be the optimal dosage. Again, this is not just myself speaking, but this is just years, decades of testing blood work.
Yeah. So just as a side note, when you hear about guys doing 16, 20 IUs a day, if it's real, they're usually in a place like Dubai or Kuwait where they're not paying for shit. Somebody's giving them all the crap they want. And you're like, oh, so they'll take 20 IUs of GH. Doesn't mean that that's doing anything more for them than 10. It's just, well, it's all free. Might as well. So there you go.
It's actually causing more side effects because you do have side effects of GH. You have enlargement of organs. You have higher, you have, again, we've talked about this in the past, filtration rates on the kidney. So you have a higher filtration rate at a higher dosage. So the more, again, 10,000 milligrams of test doesn't necessarily mean it's better than 1,500 milligrams of test, 1,250 milligrams of test. So they're going overboard.
I mean, you see the faces on a lot of people. That acromegaly look, because it causes what? Cartilage growth? Is that what goes on? Because you'll see the brow ridge starts getting big like a freaking Neanderthal. They get a big fat nose. Yeah. I remember at the New England Championships, no, your nose isn't that big, but it was probably like 10 or 15 years ago. I remember the top 3 heavyweights at a local show. They were all bald. They were all about 5'5" or 5'6" heavyweights. They looked and they all had the same GH face, like the big ridge on the brow, the big jaw. I was like, geez, they look like freaking triplets. I don't know how you judge them. All right, let's get back to serious stuff. Timing. That's another thing people I've heard about. First thing in the morning and then wait 30 minutes for does it matter? So I know if you're trying to use it for fat burning purposes, you don't want any glucose, you don't want any carbs in your system, so you want to be on empty stomach. Is that right?
So when it comes to bodybuilding, there hasn't been many tests ever, human standardized study tests, as Lane Norton says, done on gear, right? Well, the GH for bodybuilders, the test for bodybuilders, EQ for bodybuilders. So the whole fasting thing has to do with a study that was done on actual GH patients about 2 decades ago. The study stated that after 3 days of fasting, GH went up 300%. Your GH input went up 300% after injecting GH. So again, guys, that's 3 days of fasting, right? Wow. The study then went on to conclude that after 7 days of fasting, GH went up 450%.
7 days of no eating, wouldn't you be dead? You'd be close. You'd want to die.
No, that's I mean, 3, you can still survive. As long as you have water, right? But yeah, so that's where a lot of things that we hear as bodybuilders come from, and we're gonna discuss this on T4 and insulin as well with the GH. A lot of things that we hear come from medical studies that have been done, but they never keep reading, right? They only read one thing. You have to be fasted. You can't have glucose in your body. This, that. But that's the only test. I mean, and there's been other tests that have, again, human standardized study tests, as Lane Norton says. So that's where we get a lot of our information from, and just bodybuilders and coaches and all these experts, they start exaggerating the thing. No, I mean, I would always take my GH in the morning. I would get up, I would take half, whatever I would take, I would take half in the morning, wait probably 10, 15 minutes, and while I'm cooking breakfast, and then eat my breakfast, and then at nighttime I would take it right before bed.
Well, it sounds like it might not even matter if you wait to eat or not. You could have it right after a meal, or it wouldn't even. We're basing this. Everyone's been doing it based on that one freaking study. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that study was done. I think that it was done probably 25 years ago. It was done over 2 decades ago.
Unbelievable. Okay, yeah, because you'll hear people say, "Well, you should take it at nighttime because that's when your body makes it." So you're trying to mimic the time, but do you think that even matters?
So when it comes to the medical purposes of taking GH, as far as what it's meant for, to help people grow, to help people grow their bones, cancer patients, burn, HIV patients, burn victims, people with trauma, they're given GH as well. At nighttime is the best time actually at nighttime is when it's prescribed to be taken. So yeah, nighttime does help because your body is releasing it. But then you hear some other people say, well, why am I going to take it at nighttime if my body's already releasing it in the nighttime? So I should take it after, I don't know, meals 1, 2, 3, and 4. You know what I'm saying? Like it said when to take it in the damn the instructions.
Yeah, well, I mean, the bottle, they're not that the instructions on the bottle aren't geared towards someone trying to become Mr. Olympia. So, but man,
but they are geared to be the most effective way of taking it for patients that actually need it. So it's the same thing for us, right?
Yeah, I guess we're patients. So but you typically want to split up. Would you always split up your doses, or would you? Now you don't, probably because you're only taking a small amount. But when you were doing the 4 to 6, did you always do a morning dose and an evening dose?
I always did the night dose no matter what. Always. I sometimes just skip the morning dose. But when I was regimental, if I skip the morning, of course I'm gonna take the full amount at nighttime. But when I was really regimental, it was half in the morning, half in the evening. And that's what I have my clients do right now. I split it in half. I've always had my clients do that.
Random question. It doesn't matter. It goes into the bloodstream, so anywhere under the skin. You can put it in your friggin' jaw, I guess, if you really want to. But
I mean, as long as subcutaneous, even IM growth too. I mean, I just wouldn't IM that little amount of water, right?
Yeah. So my last question, then we'll get to other stuff that you have. These peptides, ipamorelin, I think people think MK677. A lot of people think these are just as good as growth hormone, and a lot of these anti-aging clinics, that's what they'll give you instead of growth hormone. But I've heard some people say, these peptides, comparing the peptides to actual Pharma growth hormone is like comparing a watered down light beer to like a shot of Bacardi 151?
It's more like a shot of water. It's more like a shot of water, water, not Bacardi.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So okay. So GH is a peptide. You know, it's a growth. It's a hormone, but it's really a peptide. It's made out of 191 amino acids that's being released through the pituitary gland. And then it goes, and then the growth hormone gets released through the pituitary gland. It travels through the body, through the liver, and through the liver becomes IGF-1. But growth hormone is actually a peptide. You know, some people just don't know that, but huge difference. There's a difference between 191 amino acid growth hormone peptide and the ones you mentioned. You know, the ones you mentioned do not increase, you know, IGF-1 levels in blood work or GH levels to the point of where, you know, it is being productive. You know, it might go up a couple of points, you know, but a couple of points is not being, you know, above 275, which is a high normal standard. So it wouldn't be 300, 350, 400. It just wouldn't be, especially for bodybuilding purposes. It's not going to work for bodybuilding purposes and athletic purposes. It'll work for, you know, lifestyle and keep yourself healthy, sort of, I guess. I mean, it still doesn't increase it. Wow. They have to sell you something, Ron. They have to sell you something.
Damn it. Oh well. I don't know why I'm complaining. I did use it for like the Ipamorelin for a month, and I was like, man, it just isn't the same. I'm not, you know, exactly what you said, the thinner skin, a little bit more vascularity. You know, I think most people, if you're getting real Pharma GH, you will notice changes pretty quickly, a week or two. Because when you hear somebody say, well, it's going to take like 6 months or something, that means it's fake shit. And they're just trying to string you along and get your money for 6 months until you figure out this isn't working. But, you know,
yeah.
it took you that long.
I was off of GH from 2018 until a couple weeks ago. You know, so we're talking about almost 5 years, 4 years and like 11 months without taking GH. And when I put in, you know, a couple weeks ago, people are telling me, you know, you look more muscular, you look more leaner. And I haven't done cardio. I've been lazy. I just haven't done cardio lately.
Fair enough. All right, well, that's all my questions, Fak. What do you got for us from your fans and viewers and followers?
So we have a lot of questions that were repeated. One of them was the other peptides that we talked about. The carpal tunnel. Some people do get carpal tunnel. You know, some people, you know, they like I said, get carpal tunnel. They do become sensitive, tingly feelings. Can that be avoided? I think it's dose related, but again, if you go for 4 IU, so 1 IU, you know, it's not going to work for athletic purposes. The highest amount I've ever heard anybody use, you know, we've talked about it. We talked about it 16, 32, 40 IUs a day. You know, I've heard some crazy amounts. Now, I have a bunch of questions here, but the first question I want to get to is, I got to ask myself, and this is something that's been very popular over the last couple of years, is using T4 with GH. That's a lot of coaches are doing that, you know, and so Anthony Robbins wrote an article years ago, stating that you had to take T4 with GH. Now, if you ask any doctor this, or you go to any TRT clinic, or any doctor that knows anything about hormonal, you know, hormone replacement, endocrinologist, they're gonna tell you no. And the reason is, if your body is normal, right? If your T3, T4, and your TSH is normal, why are you gonna implement something else, you know, that's gonna affect your body? I never took T4 with GH, and GH worked amazing for me. You know, it's working amazing for me right now. So if your thyroid is normal, why are you gonna add something? Anything you add hormonal wise, your body's gonna stop producing. It's just that's a fact.
What's the reason? I don't understand why they have to have a reason to tell you why you need. Why do they tell you need T4 with growth hormone? What's the reason?
It's going to increase the amount. So it's going to increase the amount of growth that's being the intake of the growth is going to be at a higher level. Okay. If your T4 is normal, but Ron, this is a lot of coaches. This is like a big thing over the last couple of years. This is one I want to bring it up. If your T3 and T4 are normal, then you don't need T4. Now, I've had clients that have had low T4 levels, and they've taken growth, and the IGF-1 levels on blood work has been shit. It's been 150. It's been 100. It's been 85. Yeah, at that point, then you have to put in the T4, at least 100 micrograms mcgs, and then you would see you saw the GH levels go normal and then above normal. But that's only if you have T4 issues. That's why I don't understand why all these coaches are doing it, because it makes no fucking sense. You're gonna blow out your T4, and now you're gonna need to use T4 for the rest of your life. Synthroid,
Monkey see, monkey do, I guess.
But, that's exactly what it is.
There's so much in this industry where people just copy what someone else does without even questioning it. Well, this coach does it, I'll do it too. What about a lot of people say you have to take metformin with it because you're gonna to mitigate becoming insulin resistant on GH, which is a real concern, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It totally is. Again, but if your glucose levels are fine, you don't need to put in metformin. And metformin is like the least issue when it comes to any type of insulin products. These guys are using Lantus. All right, so let's put in Lantus, to regulate our blood sugars. Well, now you're taking GH and you're taking Lantus, right? Which is a long-acting insulin mimicker. But actually, it's not a mimicker. Well, it's a mimicker, but it's also a releaser from the body. Well, the Lantus is not working, so let's throw in Humalog. So now you're taking T4, Lantus, and Humalog with the growth. So not only are you shutting down your T4, but you're shutting down, your insulin. Your pancreas is going to stop releasing insulin. Again, please, anybody who wants to discuss this can come on the show. We would love to have you guys on the show. You can bring a friend too if you want, because you're wrong. You're completely fucking wrong when you're doing this.
Wow.
I'm telling you this right now. You're shutting down hormones that are going to get shut down. I mean, if we take insulin all the time, our pancreas shuts down, period. If we take T3 and T4 all the time, our thyroid is going to shut down. I want to say something about T3 too. So a lot of coaches use T3 just normally to burn body fat. So 25 micrograms of T3 is the equivalent of taking 250 milligrams of test every 7 to 10 days. That's TRT. So 25 micrograms of T3 is not doing anything to burn body fat at all. When you start going up to 75 micrograms and 100 micrograms, 175, 150 micrograms, it's going to burn body fat, but you're also destroying the thyroid, the T3 thyroid as well. So there's certain things that people don't understand, and they just put in there as copy and paste, so they just don't go out there, and do the research themselves.
Yeah. And this is why we get so many people leaving the sport and then complaining, oh, my metabolism's destroyed.
Yes.
I have to be on thyroid meds for the rest of my life. I need to be on insulin the rest of my life.
How many bodybuilders do we know that are diabetic now? There's a bunch of them. There's a couple of Miss Olympias that are diabetics because they just didn't come off insulin after a couple of meals. The meal before you work out, the meal after you work out, your morning meal, your nighttime meal, your body, whatever your body, it's like test. It's just like test, man. It's a hormone. If you're taking 1,000 milligrams of test and you never come off, or even if you do come off, and PCT, like some guys PCT once a year, twice a year, your test levels are going to shut down. It works the same exact way, with your pancreas and your thyroids.
No free lunch, huh?
No, nothing. It's not candy. We're not taking candy here, guys. I mean, the shit affects us. We have to be smart with what we're doing. And just do research yourself.
Well, why I got you here. That's why we do the show. All right. What else we got, Fak? What next?
So the maximum amount we talked about, first time GH users. So first time GH user. Again, if you could afford the GH, I would put it in. If you want to be competitive, right? Again, women is usually 1 to 2 IUs, depending on what class. Like bikini girls, that take GH is 1 to 2 IUs. When you start getting into women's physique and women bodybuilding, then it's more 2 IUs, 3 IUs, 4 IUs. But if you're a first time user and you want to be competitive, especially nowadays where everything is chemical warfare, I would say at least start off with 4 IUs. What else do we got here? Somebody asked for a good supplier. I can't say that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Is IGF-1 and G serum levels correct when it comes? Yeah, of course. Yeah. So if your IGF-1 and G serum levels are below what normal is, and you're taking real GH, the GH is probably not real. But you have to also check the rest of your hormones as well. Hold on. Is it worth for taking anti-aging? Yes, of course. So GH works amazing for anti-aging. That's the second reason why people use it. The first reason is for growth stunts, and the second one is for hormone replacement, which is being GH hormone replacement.
It's actually, a lot of people call it the fountain of youth. That was what
Yeah.
the medical community was calling it. So, yeah.
No, yeah, and I agree. I mean, it has to do with your genetics also, and how you take care of yourself. Post-use dependency and protocol. So like any other hormone that you're taking, it's not, if you're taking it for 3 or 4 months, it's not going to be in your system for the rest of your life, right? It's going to come out and you're going to need it. So the post-use dependency would have to do with your income and and how you want to take care of yourself. So I mean, I was off of it for almost 5 years. But I'm almost 50 years old. I'm gonna be 50 in September. I always take care of myself. I try to eat right. I like you, Ron. I love to train. I train hard. But some people they do fall apart because that's all they depend on, right? That the use of hormones.
Well, why did you go off for 5 years?
Well, 5 years ago, I had some health issues. My kidneys. So what happened to me was I would run blood work every 3 to 4 months, and in 2017, I was living in Florida and I had to come back to New York. And I say this openly, I had to come back to New York, and I didn't get my blood work checked for like 9 months. And within that 9 months period, my GFR, my filtration rate went from 96 down to 70. So I lost 26 points in my filtration rate. Normal at my age at that time, even until now, you should be 90 and above. Anything lower than 90, you're going into stage 2. So I was at the beginning of stage 3, and that was the issue, right? And then my creatine was always high because the more muscle you have, the higher your creatinine levels are going to be. It's just natural. It's just the way the body is. So my creatinine levels was always like 1.7, 1.8, 1.9, even up to 2.1. But then it jumped up to 4, 4.5, 5. So there was a lot of concerns that was going on. So it was like, well, am I gonna die for being a bodybuilder for the rest of my life? Do I want to be connected to a machine? No, the answer is no. So I came off of everything, and I didn't use anything from 2000. I didn't use anything from May 2018, not one thing from May 2018 all the way up to about a couple of years ago. I started taking HRT, and I wasn't taking it seriously like every 7 to 10 days until the beginning of this year. So right now, my GFR, well, actually, yeah, right now, because I got my blood work done last week. My GFR is 69. Okay. My creatine is 1.6, and my bun is 27. So I mean, I'm a stage 3, but believe it or not, most of you bodybuilders are also stage 3. It's the truth. It's just the truth. I get a lot of blood work, but being stage 3, I can live forever. I'm healthy, man. I play basketball, I play football still, I work out, and I spar. I do 15, not even 12 rounds. I do 15 rounds of boxing 3 times a week.
Jeez.
So that's the reason why I came off.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah,
I knew about the kidneys, but I didn't know it was all interconnected. You came off everything like that.
Everything. Yeah. I had to, Ron. I had to take care of myself. I love myself, man. Everybody should love themselves.
Like the soap opera said, you got one life to live. That's it.
Yeah.
there's no redo. So there's no reboot in real life. So all right, moving on. More growth hormone questions. What do we got?
All right, so we got we went over a lot of stuff. Does injecting growth hormone affect the natural production when you stop using it? Very good question. Like I said, I came off. My IGF-1 levels were 250 when I started the growth. My IGF-1 level was 250 for like the last few years. It's still within a normal range, so mine didn't shut down. Mine did not come down or go below normal range. And again, guys, remember, I was on growth for 18 straight years. No matter what, I would come back from Sound Factory all twisted up and still put my growth hormone in there. I would be tired of self and training and still put my growth hormone in there. So when I tell you 18 straight years, if I probably missed 30 days, 1 month, and 18 years, that's a lot. So no, my growth hormone was not affected. But it
Well, I
probably
mean,
it probably did go down.
that's you, but say somebody else who's on growth hormone, say they're on it for 5 years straight and they go off, is their body ever going to make, or is it going to shut down the production the way like your test production gets shut down?
So as any hormone does, it does go down, right? It comes down with age. And that's the reason why they give it a hormone replacement clinic, right? And HRT clinics, because it does come down. But growth hormone, your IGF-1 levels seem to be very, I guess, resistant, because they're stubborn. They don't go down as fast as test does. Test goes down extremely fast for all males. Again, it's myself and just clients, but I also know guys that are 21 years old that don't have high growth hormone. They're below normal. They're like, the growth hormone is 80. I know guys that are 19 years old. I know guys that are 25, 30. So everybody's body works a little different. That's why getting your hormones tested is very important, because your growth hormones is your blueprint, right? So this is your body, and then you have your blueprint. So you guys work together hand in hand. And a lot of guys don't. A lot of bodybuilders, male and female, all different divisions, their body does not change because it might be one little tweak that they need in their protocol. Recently, I had a client. We're prepping for a show. We're on all the prep gear, including trend. But his progesterone levels were out of control. So we took out the trend. A couple weeks, 5 weeks before the show. And he goes, well, what else do I need to replace it with? I'm like, you're taking enough. Just take out the trend. Just by taking out the trend, the progesterone was beating the shit out of the testosterone levels, right? And it was making him softer. He was, and not just softer, but he was also his strength was going down, and his muscles were looking like shit. And even though the guy was taking 1,000 milligrams of test, so once we took that out, his body just changed incredibly. So again, one little thing in your hormones could make a huge difference.
That is so ironic because so many people, they take trend to get a harder look and to get stronger and more, that rage when they're training. And for this guy, it was the total opposite effect. It made him look softer. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, if your progesterone levels are high, it's like estrogen, right? if you're not taking a real anti-E, your body's gonna suffer if it has. I've had clients that weren't running real anti-E's, and then, what's going on? What's going on, Fak? Run your blood work. No, my guy's good. My guy's good. I have good hookup. Run your blood work. No, my guy's real. My guy gives stuff to Mr. Olympia. You know how, like, everybody. Listen, nobody's drug dealer is a bad drug dealer, right? And every drug dealer sells real steroids, right? That's just the way it fucking is, man. Yeah. So we ran the guy's blood panels, and his estrogen was 4,000.
Oh, wow.
4,000.
I didn't know that was possible.
I didn't know it was possible either, man, but it was 4,000. So he put in Aromasin, and we started doing Aromasin every single day for 2 weeks, and within 2 weeks, his body was back to normal.
Yeah. Now, was the estrogen so high because he was on a lot of androgens, and that his body was trying to balance itself out, so producing more estrogen?
Again, everybody's genetically different. So I can tell you exactly what this guy was on. He was on 750 milligrams of test. He was on EQ, trend, masterone, anavar, and growth. So I mean, he was on a few compounds, but not extremely high. But the conversion of the estrogen was out of control high, and within 2 weeks he was back to normal. And we went, because I was gonna pull him out. I told him, listen, we can't do the show. There's no way you're gonna do the show. You look like shit. And I could be the worst coach in the world, but you're not gonna look that bad. It had to be something, and we figured out what it was.
Yeah, I applaud you for taking him out of the show. I see some people on stage, and I know they have coaches, and I'm like, wow, your coach sucks letting you get up there and look like that. I would never.
It's always an issue, man.
I would never let somebody get up there and make a fool of himself like that.
No. At all. It's embarrassing.
Yeah. I mean, geez. Even some. I'm going way off topic, but Cal Pro, did you watch that a couple weeks ago?
No.
There were some guys in the open class looked like they were 6 to 8 weeks out, 10 weeks out. Like, come on, dudes, come on. You knew what day the show was. Seriously. Anyway.
The Atlantic States in New York, Steve Weinberg and Beth Francis show, the Atlantic States was in New York on Saturday. And that was probably the best bodybuilding class I've seen on stage in, man, close to a decade.
Wow.
Yeah, so there was,
Encouraging.
there was really good bodybuilders, and everybody was in good shape. Not everybody, but most people were. But the amount of bodybuilders that were on stage and in good shape was probably one of the best bodybuilding classes I've seen in a very, very long time. I was very impressed by it.
That's refreshing to hear because we've been losing bodybuilders to classic and men's physique like crazy for the past 10 years. Guys who would make great bodybuilders, but they're like, nah, I'll do the board shorts. I'll do the I understand classic. I like classic. So
I like
but yeah,
classic too.
but it's good to hear that the numbers in bodybuilding going back up because I
Absolutely.
get
very
pretty
impressed.
bummed out when I go to a show and there's a ton of men's physique, ton of classic, and then the bodybuilding comes on. There's like a few guys. I'm like, oh, really? That come on, that's it. Damn. Oh,
Yeah, so remember, so I judge, right? So when I go to the show, we get the the competitors list before they come on stage. I'm like 9 bodybuilders in the whole show, 14 bodybuilders in the whole show. When me and you used to compete, how many people we had in our classes? 30, 40?
The last show I did, Masters Nationals in 2013, just the over 40 heavyweights that I was in was 32 guys. That was in one class. Yeah.
I've had 40 in my class, and I've had 4. So I won the Atlantic States in 2002. I won the overall show, and I think I had 47 people in my class. In the regional show, not even national show, Atlantic States 2002, I had like 47 people in my class.
I'm a little older than you, Fak. I remember going to shows in California in the early 90s where teenage classes would be like 20, 30 kids. Teenagers.
Yeah.
They'd be like 2 masters. Now it's like 30 masters and 2 teenagers. Well, it's the same kids that were teenagers. Now they're all like 50 years old. But
they're doing masters now.
Yeah, a lot of masters. We got any more growth hormone questions, or we covered it?
Yeah, we do. We have a couple more, but to be honest, we went over them already. One of them was about the the glucose sensitivity, the insulin resistance. So of course GH is GH. So to be GH sensitive, to help yourself to be GH sensitive, to do normally would be to be active, to eat clean, to take your vitamins, certain amino acids, certain vitamins increase GH production. So you want to be GH sensitive, right? And that sensitivity is what creates the ability for GH to work even more. When you hear the word resistant, that's the bad part. Resistant means that your body's not using it, your body's not, absorbing it, something's blocking it. Again, it could be, a T4, a T3, it could be a thyroid issue. It could be an insulin issue. But once again, like we mentioned earlier, if you guys are healthy, there's no need to take none of that stuff. If you're going to a doctor's for HRT, he's gonna put you on a test. He's probably gonna give you an anti-estrogen, and if you want to do GH, he's gonna do GH. But he's not gonna tell you T4, Atlantis, human log, and everything else.
Right. Yeah. I mean, these things, growth hormone it's a legitimate formulation. It was originally meant for dwarves, for children, because if they found, I don't know how they discovered that, but they were giving it to children who were going to be dwarves.
Yeah.
They would have been like 3 feet tall, but some of them got to be like over 5 feet tall. At least they're not handicapped from taking growth hormone. And I don't know at what point bodybuilders latched onto the idea that it was a good thing for them, but we've like pirated every drug from everything from I mean, I know tons of guys that use like Cialis and Viagra just for pumps in the gym. I take Cialis for training. I don't, not necessarily, it's great for sex too, but we've figured out we're like evil geniuses. We found out all these drugs for other conditions that can help you become a better bodybuilder. I think, we should get a little credit for that, as bad as it sounds in a way.
Yeah, but also guys, remember, every step, for the most part, every steroid was created for medical condition, right? And it was just showing to, there was a little study here that showed, the synthesizer of the protein. There was a little study here that showed that the protein, that specific drug, use the protein and leucine to create more mTOR production, and a little study here, a little study there, and that's how we discovered everything. I mean, I think oral turinabol is one of the only PEDs to be created for non-medical use, just strictly for performance enhancement.
It was for the East German Olympic athletes, I believe, right? But,
yeah, them and the Japanese, man. I remember that Japanese swimming team came out, the female swimming team, and they had the jackets on the whole time, and everybody's warming up. All the countries are warming up, and and it was already like, it was already being not public, it was already being heard that these women were jacked up, and it wasn't one of the, I think it was the Pan Am Games. No, it wasn't. It was in the World Championships of swimming one year, because Pan Am Games. No, it was World Championships, and the minute they took off their warm up suits, it was like their fucking backs were like this, Ron. They had wings, and they jumped on the water, and their wings just came out and started going.
You mentioned oral turinabol was developed in the Eastern Bloc, in Eastern Germany, or East Germany, West Germany, the communist side, and the Russians. They developed it so they would have an edge over, in the Olympics. And there was in the 70s, there was like running jokes all the time about the East German female swimmers, how like masculine they were. And it's because they were all juiced out of their skulls. And some of them, there's one on like YouTube I saw. She's like 60 now, and you would never know this was a female. Looks like a 60-year-old man, voice, beard, everything, hairline, exactly like a 60, 65-year-old man. But that was turinabol.
And the thing with oral turinabol, it wasn't, you couldn't test for it because nobody knew what it was, right? So there was no testing for it at all. It appeared on blood work a little differently. So they had to create a certain test. WABA had to create a certain test for it to, in the IOC Olympic Committee, for it to be detected once they found out about it. And that was years and years. I think it was decades later when they started testing for oral turinabol. And I love oral turinabol. It's one of my it's probably my favorite oral. I mean, it was my favorite oral to take. I would get big, strong, without no water. It's like D-ball without the water retention.
They call it, I've heard it called dry D-ball.
Yeah, there you go.
Don't get the bloat from D-ball. You don't get the moon face.
I love it. I'm gonna take it right now.
No, I agree. It was always one of my favorites too, for sure. Well, that's it, man. Follow Fak on Instagram at, come on, Ron, you can do this. It's Fak Pro. I can do it. Come on, Ron. It's F-A-K. I should write these things down. Fak Mubarak _forever _IFBB _pro. I find that if you just type in FAK, it comes up pretty quickly anyway, so you don't have to remember all that.
There's not too many Fakhri on Instagram, by the way. On this world.
Where you must have run into some other Fakhris.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy because my father's Fakhri, and he named me Fakhri, and then when he left my mother, he named his other son Fakhri.
Wow.
And then when he got married to his current wife, he named his son Fakhri too. So us three are all Fakhris. But I've run into one Fakhri other than anybody in my blood, anybody in my family, ever in my life. And it was actually in Russia where I ran into the person.
Wow. I thought it would have been Egypt or something, huh?
No, it was in Russia. It was actually in Russia, yeah.
Wow. So three different, you have two stepbrothers named Fakhri. Or half brothers, half brothers. I'm sorry,
half brothers. Yeah. So my Puerto Rican Fakhri, he's 6'4". I'm 5'5". So my Puerto Rican brother Fakhri is 6'4". My Arabic Fakhri, Arabic father, Arabic mother, he's 6'7".
6'7"? What the hell are they feeding these people?
My father was 6'6". My father's 6'6", 280. My father's a beast.
I would say what happened to you, but I have a brother. I never got much taller than 5'8". I'm on the way down now, but I have a younger brother, 6'2". He's coming down. He's not as tall anymore either, but no one in our family is tall. He looks like me, so it's not like he's like the milkman's kid. But we're where did that come from? We have no idea. Nobody's that tall in my family. Nobody.
My mother's 5'11". So if you take my mother, my dad's height, she'll probably be 5'7", 5'8". So God shorted me 3 inches on the average.
Yeah, but look what he gave. He gave you so many other things, Fak. Come on now.
Thank God. Thank God for it.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much, Fak. Appreciate it. This has been a great discussion. I hope we answered all your questions, guys. If you have ideas for topics you want on a future show, put them in the comments below. Anybody that wants to come on and debate Fak, that'd be awesome. Do that. Let's hear from you guys. Hit us up in the comments. Yeah, because I think I'd sit there with just a box of popcorn and watch you guys go at it is what I would do.
Yeah, no, I mean we listen. The show that me and Ron have. We would love to have people on here. It's not just a debate. We're not going to be debating angry and stuff like that. But anybody that can offer any type of information to people, it helps, it'll help people, other competitors and other lifters. Please, man, hit us up and we'll put you on. We would love to.
Nobody knows everything, and there's a lot of different opinions, and sometimes it's really good to get different perspectives. So
absolutely, if you stop learning is when you stop living. That's what I heard.
That's a good one. I'm going to steal that. All right, cool. Well, thank you, Fak. Appreciate it. This has been another episode of Fak Attack with Fak Mubarak. We appreciate you guys watching. Subscribe to the channel if you like the video. Hit that thumbs up thing. Turn your notifications on your phone too. Very important. And that's it. We appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you right here next time on the Fak Attack.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Hey, did you like that video? Smash that like button. Subscribe to MD. And please comment down below. Thanks for watching.
Brought to you by Muscle Mints. Muscle Mints is the creator of carnivore pure beef protein icing. Beef builds muscle, and carnivore is the world's #1 selling beef protein.